Well, I don't know about you, but the From finale had me like... We had multiple deaths, killer storms, and some heartfelt father-son moments. But did we get the answers we've been desperately wanting?
If there is something you need us to understand, you're gonna have to do a little better because we are not getting it!
This is a deep dive into the episode where we'll be exploring some of the biggest theories from the season finale. If you're new to these videos, make sure to like and subscribe as I do plan on covering the final season, plus check out my House of the Dragon videos. Shameless self-plug. The season finale has been building up to one major event, the retrieval of the bones. These aren't just any old bones, but the bones of the children sacrificed centuries ago. In season 1, Tabitha had a vision in the lighthouse where we see these years etched in the walls, which I still continue to believe are the start and end dates of previous cycles. Each cycle tells the same story, each cycle has different people playing the same roles, and each cycle can be changed ever so slightly. For example, the man in yellow tells Tabitha in episode 408,
"You're here because you're about to do something you've never done before. The notion of you digging up those bones? You may have finally found the key to setting those children free."
In the finale, the boy in white, who should really be called the teen in white, tells Sophia, aka the man in yellow, that she's going to lose this time, suggesting that the man in yellow has won every single time. It appears that when the man in yellow wins, the cycle restarts, creating this never-ending loop. This loop is shown through the infinity symbol on Boyd's ring, as well as on the cave paintings drawn by the monsters in Season 1. But we have to ask ourselves, why didn't the retrieval of the bones work? In fact, it seems to have only made things worse. In episode 409, Sophia tells Clara about the importance of rituals, and that it's not just about what you do, but how you do it. So I've identified 3 theories on why this bone ritual didn't work. The first is that they don't have all the bones. In episode 409, Tabitha showed us this close-up of the talisman. You'll notice 8 notches in the shape of an F, one for every child that was sacrificed. But if you look at Jade's vision of the Ankui kids who were slaughtered, there are only 7 of them. This hints that there was one survivor, and might explain why each cycle has a survivor like Victor and soon to be Ethan. This would imply one child's bones are missing from completing the set. Second, as Sophia hinted, it's possible that the ritual was not done properly. Jade and Tabitha missed something that they were supposed to do to ensure the ritual was done correctly. And finally, and this is the one I tend to gravitate towards, is that the ritual is not complete. By the end of the episode, we can assume that Jade and Tabitha have made it out of the tunnels alive with the bones, but what are they supposed to do with them once they get out of there? This is why I think there's more to be done, and I think it involves the Lake of Tears. Way back in episode 402, a vision of Jim appeared to his son Ethan, telling him to find the Lake of Tears. Now, there was definitely something weird about this Jim. He would constantly look back into the forest as if someone could be following him, and at the end, he kind of vanishes into thin air. Considering Sophia would have been in town with Sarah at this time, I don't think it was Sophia taking on his form. I also don't think the lake near the settlement is this Lake of Tears. In Season 1, after Ethan awakens from a seizure, he tells us this cryptic vision in which he saw the Lake of Tears followed by a spider. Spiders have been seen all throughout the show. From the spider forest Boyd and Sarah passed through in Season 1, Victor's drawing of a spider with these tears or droplets, and spiders crawling in Jade's mushroom trip. Whatever the Lake of Tears is must somehow be connected with the spiders, and the settlement lake has no such connection. This Lake of Tears and spider imagery also makes me think of the nursery rhyme The Itsy Bitsy Spider. The rhyme, like the show's story cycles, is an infinite loop in which this spider goes up the spout, is washed away, only to climb up it again. In this analogy, the spider here would be the man in yellow, who, despite the efforts to get rid of him, keeps coming back. So if the ritual isn't done, what's next? What do we do with these bones? I think the bones have to be taken to the Lake of Tears. Way back in episode 101, when Ethan's finger puppet Norman dies, Ethan tells us that the fairies can take him to the Lake of Tears to be healed. Ethan tells us on many occasions that the lake has magical healing properties. It's the reason he wants to find it, so that it could bring back his dad. What if it can bring back the children too, resurrect them, and possibly unite them with the missing child that got away? One of the biggest WTF moments of the finale was the sky turning from day to night, allowing the monsters to make chase to Jade and Tabitha. Is this one of Sophia's powers, and if so, why doesn't she make it night all the time? I think this has to do with how the world operates. I've said since season 1 that this town is pulled in two directions, good and evil. When things get a little too bad, something good happens, and when things get a little too good, something bad happens. It's almost as if the town is trying to create this balance. There are countless examples of this throughout the seasons. Take for example when Boyd thought he was a goner when he got lost in the forest and was nearly killed by the monsters. He just happened to stumble upon a stone hut at the time that had the talisman in it. Or how about when Donna nearly died? Boyd kept at it, stating she doesn't get to die until he says so. Then magically she resuscitates. But this episode has arguably the most glaring example of this when it comes to the earthquake. After day turns to night, an earthquake comes out of nowhere, creating a new exit for Jim and Tabitha to escape. In writing, this is called Deus Ex Machina, Latin meaning God from machine. It's a term for a plot device in which something seemingly impossible, like an earthquake, fixes an unsolvable problem, like getting trapped by the monsters. It's as if God himself caused this earthquake in order for the story to play out the way it should. And considering how much this show leans into its writing and storytelling motifs, such as the reoccurring appearances of the Chromonocle and the Grand Gulagog, I don't think this is a coincidence. Pulling the two ends of this metaphorical rope, swinging the town between good and evil, are the boy in white and man in yellow. Since some of the writers of From used to be writers on Lost, I think they're taking a page from the man in black and Jacob. These were two diametrically opposed forces, one that wanted to protect the island and the other that wanted to destroy it, yet the two couldn't harm each other. I think the same dynamic applies to the boy in white and the man in yellow. Us humans are merely chess pieces on a board manipulated by these two sides. The man in yellow also shares many of the same characteristics as the man in black. Both can shapeshift into those who have died, and both manipulate the inhabitants with promises of ways off the island or from town. Sophia notes that the darkness means they are getting close to the end, and it gets very messy at the end. Instead of accepting Sophia's bargain, Elgin prays. He told Julie that he believed this place was a test from God, and he isn't going to give in to another mysterious entity with promises of escape in return for doing evil things. Thus, Elgin is killed. But we'll talk about how he might come back in a bit. As we end the season, the town is in its worst situation yet. Marielle and Elgin have been killed, Fatima is MIA, and the talisman have been thrown into the abyss of a faraway tree. So where does that put our townspeople? First, life without talisman isn't something unheard of in town. Remember when Boyd's family first arrived, there weren't any. The townsfolk had to survive at night in these hidden underground bunkers. It wouldn't be until sometime later that Boyd would stumble upon the talisman in the forest, which would allow the townsfolk to survive with some degree of safety. To me, there's nothing these guys can do but revert back to the underground bunker system. The settlement is basically a kill zone with those nightmare dolls, and there's nowhere else to go. Maybe they'll get lucky and Sophia left a talisman behind, or the ones she dropped in the faraway tree could be discovered. I'm also interested if these talisman will be separated around at different places, or if they'll all be in one place. We don't really understand how these faraway trees work. For example, when Tabitha went through the bottle tree in season 2, it led her to the lighthouse. But when Dale went through that exact tree, he ended up in the concrete of the motel pool. Then there's the psyche of the town itself. During Jade's mushroom trip, young Jade told us that in every cycle, the town turns on him and Tabitha. If there's any time for the town to do so, it's now. It was Jade's idea to tear down the bottle tree, and that has caused a shitstorm of problems. We've also had Sophia planting the idea amongst the townsfolk that the bad things started to happen in town with the arrival of Jim and Tabitha, who just so happened to arrive on the exact same day. As Patty states,
"It doesn't matter, we made things worse. We made this place angry, now we're gonna make
punished.
We also don't know the fate of Sophia. The last we saw her, she threw those talisman down a faraway tree. But will she come back to town in her Sophia form? It's possible, but risky. With the death of Elgin, the compromised rope ladder, and the missing talisman, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to get suspicious of Sophia. In fact, if I were Sophia, I think the best plan would be to take over as Elgin. Remember, she told Clara to get rid of his body, so people might not even know he died. Plus, the man in yellow can take the form of anyone who has died. Turning into Elgin allows the man in yellow to pin all the bad stuff on Sophia while maintaining a presence in town. In fact, if the man in yellow shows up as Elgin, he could show the town the Polaroid of Sophia as proof she was evil all along. You can even have Clara backing up all the man in yellow's claims. I should also bring attention to this woman found in the back of the Polaroid. A lot of people think that's Julie storywalking. Honestly, it's hard to tell, but it would be pretty awesome if it was. And next season, we see her interacting with the Sophia before the man in yellow took on her form. It's also possible Sophia could arrive in town as a new person entirely. Remember that Jim, Pastor Dunn, Marielle, and Roger have all died without any new townspeople arriving in town. So I would say season 5 is ripe for a new arrival in town, one which the man in yellow could exploit. For me, the key to solving everything involves story walking. I gotta admit, I was upset at how little story walking was incorporated this season, especially after it was hyped at the end of season 3, and we got a taste of Julie doing it midway through the season. With things taking a dire turn in town, I think Julie will have no choice but to continue her forays into story walking, even if it means giving her a seizure she'll never wake up from. The problem is that she'll have to learn how to travel back to the right moments with the use of bookmarks, something she was unable to do properly. I think the person who will help her do this is Eloise. Eloise, or Victor's sister, was never found after the massacre in the 1970s. She's a wild card. Did she manage to get back to the real world? Is she living alone somewhere out there in the forest? Or is she caught in some perpetual state of story walking? I bring this up because I think Eloise is a story walker too. The town wants us to believe we take on specific roles that repeat each cycle. For example, Tabitha is Miranda and Ethan is Victor. If we follow that logic, Julie would be Eloise. And if Julie can storywalk, it stands to reason Eloise could too. Now I want to briefly bring up these clattering kitchen cabinets that we saw in episode 401 and the finale. While it's possible this could be someone storywalking, there's a bit of a wrench in that theory. Multiple people, including Jim, Martin, the man in yellow, and the waitress monster, were all able to see Julie as she storywalked. Why can't we see anyone doing that here? Combine this with Boyd's wedding ring that mysteriously dropped down the colony house steps, I do think someone, whether it be a ghost or person in a parallel dimension, is trying to give clues to the people so they can change their story. We know that once a story has been told, it can't be changed, meaning a storywalker can't change the story, but maybe they can influence the character's currently living one. If there's one character who's gone through the most amount of pain on this show, it has to be Fatima. From her failed pregnancy last season to now turning into some sort of monster. As we begin the finale, we find her and Marielle in the clinic when they're approached by an unsuspecting character, Smiley. This is the creature she gave birth to at the end of season 3. Fatima has a mysterious connection with Smiley that goes beyond just having given birth to him. After this pregnancy, these weird veins started to appear on her body, and the night Kenny was almost killed by Smiley, Fatima could see from Smiley's POV, and even stop him for a moment from killing Kenny. To make matters even more insane, Clara gave Fatima some tea laced with her blood which was tainted by Sophia during this weird blood ritual. So it can be assumed that some form of the man in yellow is a part of Fatima. Will it have the same effect it did on Henry? Can Sophia now give Fatima these manipulating visions? The earthquake had dropped the talisman from the wall, allowing Smiley to enter and corner the two women. Smiley refers to Fatima as mother before ripping apart Marielle's stomach, but it's what we hear afterwards that's most interesting. Fatima's scream sounds like that of a monster. Now, Smiley could have killed Fatima here, but doesn't. He says the word interesting, suggesting he knows that she's turning into one of them. In the second last scene of the finale, Fatima fully turns into one of the monsters in order to buy the others time to escape the tunnels. The question is she a monster fully in control of her own body, or will she slowly turn into one of the others? Her last line, "Remember who I was," suggests the latter. Now, a lot of people have theorized that Fatima is the Kimono Woman. At first, the only real clue we had to go on is that they wore similar colored outfits, but now the evidence is getting more compelling. We know the Kimono Woman is similar, but not exactly the same as the nightmare creatures which stalk the town. She can appear during the daylight, the monsters can't, and we've never seen her roam the streets at night like the creatures do. Now that Fatima has been tainted by the Man in Yellow's blood, it's entirely possible that she is turning into next cycle's Kimono Woman. This creates a really weird scenario. It would mean that Fatima was sort of involved in her own kidnapping. Remember, it was Elgin who kidnapped Fatima at the behest of the Kimono Woman. It was the Kimono Woman who helped deliver Fatima's baby, who would become Smiley. If Fatima is to be next cycle's Kimono Woman, she'll go on to repeat this cycle for the next poor woman who takes Fatima's role. All of this ties into the theory of endless loops. One of the most heartbreaking stories in the finale is that between Henry and his son Victor. After having his drink laced with Sophia's blood, Henry started to see visions of him in the quote-unquote real world. These visions would have him believe that he's in a coma, and the only way to get back to the real world is to kill the thing anchoring him to the fake one, in this case his son Victor. It's taken several episodes for Henry to muster up the courage to kill his son, a son he thinks isn't real. And the nail on the coffin for this decision is the discovery of the bullets in Victor's peach can. Boyd has ensured all the guns are separated from the bullets, but these bullets Victor had saved from a gun he used to carry around in his lunchbox. So for Henry, this is a sign, as the Victor in his vision told him everything he'll need to undertake his mission will be provided to him. When Henry pulls the gun on Victor, it's the ultimate betrayal. Henry promised his son that everything would be okay and that he would protect him. And for a moment when Ethan interrupted, I thought he might be a goner. But the last we leave the three of them, Victor is on top of Henry, with Henry saying, "I'm sorry." I'm curious what the fallout will be from this. Will Henry be locked up? Certainly his relationship with Victor is tarnished. I still think there's a lot more story to mine from Henry here, especially if Eloise makes a return in the final season. So as we venture into that final season, I'm hoping we'll start getting a ton of new answers. I'd love to see Julie travel to different times throughout the town's history and discover clues on how to save the town. But what did you think of the finale? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments.